legend. When everybody's mouth is dry, it's time for another one. Who the hell is Paul Wicksteed?
That'd be me. I don't know. Who am I? I'm a brewer. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. I'm a home brewer. I'm a home brewer with aspirations to be a brewer. I am from Wellington in New Zealand. I grew up here in Wellington, and when I was 19, I moved to Nelson, which is where all the hops are grown. But of course, when I went down to Nelson, they weren't growing hops there anymore. They were growing tobacco, because that's what they used to grow in Nelson before the hops came along, because this was before the craft beer movement. And I was a draftsman, and I worked as a draftsman down in Nelson for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, before heading back up to Wellington to become a graphic designer, and worked as a graphic designer for a good 6 years or so, doing layouts and stuff like that.
Well, that totally makes sense because of all of the graphics that you've done for the SJ Pour experiment and the awesome labels that those of us who follow you on Facebook have seen. You've got some tremendous labels as well. So, yeah, awesome. Some of the graphics designer work is shining through.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Thank you. It's fun. When I grew up, I wanted to be an artist, or I wanted to be an engineer. So one half of my family is artistic and the other half engineering. So I was sort of a cross hybrid of the two of them. So I can still paint and understand trigonometry and algebra, which is quite handy. Which has probably led me to my current vocation as being a web developer, a front-end developer, and a business analyst for a software company. So I've been doing that for 16 years. Now, if people start to add up all the times that I've been working, you could try and work out how old I am, but hey, I hide it well. So yeah, I've been developing, and it's fun. I get a chance to do a little bit of design with the beer. I get a chance to do a little bit of engineering with home brewing as well, because my equipment is all designed by me and built by me, apart from some of the stainless steel welding, which I haven't quite mastered yet. So I got that all fabricated by somebody else. But it's fun. It's tinkering. It ticks all the boxes. It ticks my artistic creativity side. It ticks that engineering side to have a play with mechanics and thermodynamics and all that cool stuff. And it also ticks that social side, just to, have something to do that brings people together. Right.
So the Melting Pot becomes the SJ Pour Challenge website that you were able to brew up in like a weekend.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was just, yeah, it was long nights. It was a long night weekend. Yeah, because that's what I do all day. It was like, oh, this is easy. Put it together. It's still not finished, obviously. We've still got a scoring bit to do, but hey, slowly catch your monkey.
Peanuts. But okay, speaking about long nights, I mean, so you're dedicating all this time towards things like the SJ Pour Challenge, the brewing community, brew tubers. I mean, who are we stealing time from, sir? Who's behind Paul Wicksteed?
My wife, and my stepdaughter Sam, and Jesse, my son. So pretty much stealing all their time. But they sort of keep themselves busy. Jody is actually behind a lot of what I've done with brewing. It was actually her that came up with the name Another One. Because we were just driving back from a holiday in Auckland, and we were just talking about what I wanted to do with brewing and stuff like that, and I wanted to create an identity, and we were sort of coming up with names and bits and pieces, and Another One sort of popped out, and we sort of ran with that. And it works quite nicely, because you can go to a bar and you can say, "I'll have another one, please." And so it sort of fits in. And it also fits in when you brew a beer called Responsibly. So you go to a bar and you say, "I'll have another one, please." Oh, and when you get home and the wife says, "Have you been drinking too much beer?" you can say, "No, I've been drinking responsibly all night." So Little plays on booze, etc.
I'm still waiting to taste that beer responsibly.
I'm still trying to brew it. Yeah, it's sort of been brewed, but I haven't been happy with it. And YouTube. Yes, Jody started YouTube well before me and inspired me to jump on and start doing YouTubing stuff with my home brewing and bits and pieces, because it was an outlet to talk about it.
And we've been fascinated with it ever since.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm just hooked. I'm hooked. It's like primetime TV for me, watching Homebrew Wednesdays. But you know, she's great, and she is also a Star Trek fan, which is quite cool.
That is admirable.
And, you know, you don't really find a tricky girl very often.
No, any woman that loves sci-fi, I mean, you just have to try and introduce her immediately. Yeah.
Yep, pretty much. And we actually got married in Las Vegas during the Star Trek convention.
What? So, you got to tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, with my work, I travelled a lot around the country, around the world. Belgium and throughout Asia and throughout the States, and I'd spent a lot of time going to Las Vegas. And there was always cool shows and things happening at Las Vegas, and there was a Star Trek convention that came up. Sorry, no, there wasn't a Star Trek convention. The Hilton in Las Vegas used to have the Star Trek experience, and I took Jody over there for a holiday, and she loved it. She was blown away, and she wanted to go back to Las Vegas for a Star Trek convention, because they hold those every year. And so a couple of years later, one popped up, and it's the right opportunity to go over to Las Vegas to go to the convention. And we booked the tickets, got everything sorted out, ready to go. And then Jody said to me, "Hey, see, we're going to Vegas. Why don't we just get married over there?" I was like, "Okay, easy peasy." I said, "You sort out all the details, I'll be there." You know, good Kiwi bloke attitude. I'll just turn up, we'll get it done. It was tasteful. It wasn't like an Elvis wedding and a drive-through and getting a burger and a shake at the same time and upsizing it. But it was at a really nice chapel, the Little Chapel of Flowers, which has actually been changed to the Chapel of Flowers now because it's not little. There's a lot of people that get married there. And they have a beautiful church setting and garden settings and celebrants that can tailor to your needs. So she hooked all that up and got it all organised. And then the chapel contacted her and said, "We're actually involved in a reality TV series that's just starting up called Happily Ever Faster."
Okay.
Which is all about people coming to Vegas to get married. And Jody went, "Ooh, okay, that sounds like fun." And they wanted us to do a little promo video about what we were doing. And because they heard two Kiwis coming over, going to the Star Trek convention, getting married, ooh, that's good, primetime TV.
That sounds interesting.
So we
Prime
did a little,
time, baby.
Yeah. Well, prime time on one of the 4,000 channels. And we did a little promo video, and they said, "Yeah, we want you to be on the first episode." It's like, oh, okay. So not only were we going over to a Star Trek convention and going over to get married, but we're also going over to be part of a reality TV program. And that was fun. That was possibly the thing that opened up Jody's eyes to videography, because we had 2 days of walking around with camera people and sound people and directors and actors and all that sort of stuff, just to get all the shots and everything that we needed, and it really sparked her interest. But anyway, at the end of the day, they needed a story, and the story for their program was that I wanted William Shatner to be my best man. So we spent
a day sounds like the
chasing
best
down William
plan
Shatner.
ever.
Oh, get married in Vegas with William Shatner as your best man. Hell yeah. So we went and saw William Shatner, we went and saw Leonard Nimoy. Obviously, it's very hard to get those people to participate in in something like that. So they did auditions with some of the interesting Star Trek characters that go along to these conventions. like the Star Trek Santa Claus who's in a wheelchair. It's very, very interesting. I'll see if I can find a link to the video. And
Did you get a chance?
Because it's hilarious.
Did you get a chance to talk to William Shatner?
Yep. We got a chance to talk to him. We went for our photo opportunities with him, and we got a chance to sit there and ask him whether he wanted to be best man. And same thing with Leonard Nimoy as well. Leonard was keen, but then when he realised that he wasn't marrying Jodie and that he was just going to be the best man, he went, "Oh no, actually no, I'd marry her, but no, I don't want to be the best man." So yeah. So we had two weddings. We had a staged wedding that was for the TV show, and then we had our own wedding, and it was broadcast. Our wedding was broadcast live back to New Zealand, so that the people that were our family back here could watch it and all that sort of stuff. But,
so when were you introduced to craft brew, and how did that happen?
The first brew I did would have been when I was 18-ish. Yeah, 18-ish. The standard brew beer at home because you can't go to the pub. You just wanted to get a buzz on. Double sugar, horrible beer, tasted foul.
That was only 5 years ago. I mean, you've grown amazingly since then.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. And then I didn't do it. I didn't brew for a long time. I drank, but I didn't brew. And once the family came along, life sort of changed, and you didn't really get a chance to go out and have a couple of drinks at the pub and stuff like that. So you had more of a home social life, so you had friends come around. And it was my brother-in-law, actually, who started brewing beer. I was brewing spirits. I had a still, and I picked it up at a really cheap price, and that's probably the only reason I got it. I got it at a reflux still for probably about $150. And I was like, cool, I can make some whiskey.
So you were originally a moonshiner.
I was a moonshiner, yep. I was originally a moonshiner, absolutely.
Yes. Or whiskey connoisseur.
I was. No, it was a moonshiner.
Why mess around with the duller stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a moonshiner.
So how did it get turned around to beer?
Well, my brother-in-law was brewing beer while I was brewing moonshine, and we swapped. And he started brewing moonshine, and he started liking it. And I started brewing beer, and I started going, "Oh, this is a lot nicer. This is a lot easier to drink than lots of moonshine." And it sparked my interest in the beer. And there was a lot more creativity that I could have in the beer than in the moonshine. So probably my first real brew in the bag beer would have been in my still that I actually brewed in my moonshine still.
Oh.
And it came out wonderfully. And it was like, okay, let's build a brewery. And that's where it started.
Nice. So you got the bite right off the bat. Yeah. There was a couple of kits beforehand. There was a couple of learning curves with kit and kilo stuff and getting rid of the kilo and just doing 2 kits and then putting extra hops in. And they tasted great until the next beer. And then until the next beer. Because, of course, every single beer that you brew is always better than the last beer that you brewed. And so it was just a road of improvement and a road of tinkering and building stuff. So. Did you have like a learning curve when you were experimenting and you discovered that mixing 2 kits together was better than adding in more additional sugars for adjunct?
The learning curve was I asked somebody. It's like, oh, it's got to be better. And I was at one of the first Beervanas. So Beervana is New Zealand's biggest beer expo, which attracts everybody around the world. Well, lots of brewers around the world, and everybody in New Zealand all comes to Wellington for Beervana. And I was there, and there was Black Rock stand, which is extracts. And there was a lady there who was a brewer, and she had samples of it. And I tasted some of the samples, and I said, that's what I want to make. How come you can make beer like that out of those kits? And she said, how do you do it? I said, well, I use a kit and a kilo. And she said, forget about the kilo and just use 2 kits. Okay. And I did it, and it was right. It was, the flavour changed totally, and it was no going back. Never again has sugar gone into a beer ever.
That's nice.
Not even with bottling. It's always been DME or honey.
So draw the line for me. Draw the picture for me. How did you get from brewing beer in your still to that awesome setup that you have and everybody loves today?
That's it. It took about 2.5 years. Slowly, you got to launder money. You got to sneak it underneath the wife's radar, and just buy little bits. A little parcel from China here, a little parcel from the States here. Pick up a keg and go and take it somewhere, and it comes back looking totally different. So it would have taken about 2.5 years of me slowly putting together all these bits, which was great because it gave me a lot of opportunity to play with fluid dynamics and how stuff is meant to work, and learn from other people. Well, how do you brew and what does it work? But in the meantime, I was using a SIPO Brew Magic.
What?
I had a SIPO system that I had access to, and my system was sort of designed roughly on that as a 3-vessel system using kegs, but I changed all the plumbing around to best suit my kind of plumbing and the efficiencies that I wanted to get out, like with my heat exchanger that was separate and all that sort of stuff.
Now, I think I've seen actually some earlier videos from you a couple of years ago where you actually brew it on this system, the SIPO system, and you had one of your friends or colleagues come over and he was also brewing on that system. You were teaching him how to brew. Okay, was that
Yep.
your SIPO system, or how did you gain access to
No,
that?
that was brought by a homebrew store, and it was the homebrew store that I used to go to for kit and kilos and stuff. And I got friendly with the guy, and we used to chat about brewing and stuff. And he said to me one day, he said, "If we were to set up a little brewery, what would we need?" And I did some research. I looked at Brewmeisters, I looked at the SIPO system, and I came back to him and I said, we should get a SIPO system. And so that was a little brewery opportunity that, a little brewing opportunity that I was involved in. I was actually a licensed brewer. I've got a certificate that I've signed off in that premise that I can be a commercial brewer and brew on that particular system. And so that's how I sort of broke into it. I was setting up the little brewery there, playing with it, learning how to use it. But then our lives changed and our paths led in different directions. So they started doing something else, and I started doing something else as well. But it was a very good introduction to how you could brew on a very small scale. You can't.
Well, okay.
The cost of brewing on a very small scale to a pub is pretty high.
That brings up a very interesting question, because this question seems to come up often where it's like, well, what made you decide to invest in the system that you're using today, and why wouldn't you use the Brewmeister instead? Because that seems like such an attractive system in comparison. Why would you choose something like a Brutus 10 type setup instead of something like a Brewmeister or a gravity-fed system?
Because this is something I've built. So this is something I'm intimate with, and I know how it works, and it completes the hobby. The hobby isn't just about brewing beer. The hobby is about building the equipment and doing something a little bit different. If you took something off the shelf, you could possibly feel a little bit restricted in the capabilities of what it could do. You're sort of within the bounds or the envelopes of what that manufacturer has said it can do. Whereas if you build your own equipment, that perceived boundary is not there, because you can do whatever you want to do. There's nothing holding you back. And I've used those systems and I don't like them. The SIPO, it's got design flaws in it, so it was nice to use it, to see what that design flaw was, and to get rid of it in my design. Changing from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch output for the kettle made a hell of a difference. But yeah, it's more fun to build, more fun to.
So you are a tinkerer,
and it's also something. Yeah, I am definitely a tinkerer, and it's cheaper because, as I said, you can sneak it under the radar of the wife, and you can just buy a valve every month or so, instead of saying to the wife, "I need $8,000 to ship a SIPO system over here from the States. Is that all right?" It's a lot easier just to put $50 over to China and get a valve and slowly piece this thing together in your maniacal man cave and go, oh, she never knows because she doesn't come in here. Oh, unless she watches this, but nah, she won't.
So, for those of us that have been watching you do your system for the last couple of years, and you've been adding a little bit of glimmer, a little bit of glam here or there. I mean,
where do you pimping my system?
Absolutely. Where do you foresee this going in like the next 5 years? What is your plan for your home brewery for the next 5 years?
Well, my original plan was to license it so that I could brew beer and sell beer. But then, after doing some research and looking at other people that were doing that and stuff like that, it's not exactly very cost efficient, and I would end up having to go to the store to buy my own beer so that I could drink it legally. So that plan of making it a licensed brewery is not going to happen. I'm always going to leave it as a home brewery. It's a free pilot brewery that I can do whatever I want on. I'm pretty happy with the way that the system's set up at the moment. I would probably, if anything, start again. And I'd start again just to make a bigger volume. Replace the mash tun and the kettle with 100-litre pots instead of 50-litre pots. And that would probably be the thing that I would do within the next 5 years. I'm happy with the electrics. I'm happy with the pipe work and everything. It all seems to work. I haven't had any faults with it. I've got my parallel counterflow chiller that I'm currently working on at the moment because I like to, tinker and make something that's a little bit different. But I think probably what would happen is I would change the brewery. I would finish it off. When I built the brewery, you would have watched the Brewhouse build. Every day, banging wood, putting up jib, and painting and all that sort of stuff. Oh, I reckon the outside wall's not on yet. Still got a tarpaulin over.
Oh.
So
okay.
when the brewery got to the point that the inside was brewable, that I could start brewing beer, it was like, okay, tools down, start brewing beer. And I haven't gone back to the outside yet. I haven't put the cladding on the outside. It's all watertight, so that's okay. But I really need to finish my brew house. I need to put proper flooring down because everything else is nice and clean, but the flooring is just particle board. So there is the chance of there's dust or something on the particle board that could get in your beer. So I need to finish off the sanitary aspect of the brew house to make sure that everything is washed down with a hose, which is a bit hard to do with particle board on the floor.
Right.
So that's probably where I will be in 5 years' time, is actually finishing off the brew house, putting in a bar, doing the kegerator, brewing beer, I think.
All the details.
This is built.
They take the longest.
Let's just all the little details. But this system is brewing beer now, so it's like, let's just get it pumping out beer. So I've got to get myself organised that I can schedule every 3 weeks to get a beer out and work out what beers I'm going to be doing, and just get into the rhythm of it working like a little clockwork brewery and pumping out nice beer. Yeah.
So do you share this utopianism with a lot of other home brewers where it's like, home brewing is great, but I would love to do this for a living, so let's take it up to the next level and open a brewery? I mean, why not?
Absolutely. Everybody that I talk to, all my friends are brewers. The people that aren't brewers are craft beer lovers. and there's always talk and discussions about it. I started the Hut Brewer Facebook page 9 months ago, purely to bring all those people together into a community, and just to be able to share ideas. And that's where the off flavour course was. I did the infection tasting for bad beers. I did that course and ran that through the Hut Brewer. Running competitions through the Hut Brewer, like the Smash Off and the War of the Wheats that has just finished.
Yeah.
And it's great because you get to meet so many people and you get to learn so much from them, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with this. Now, I don't know whether I wanted to license it or whether I wanted to build a big brewery, build a little brewery, do a contract brew, build a brew pub, just drink. I don't know. There were all these options that I was juggling up, and luckily I had all these people that were doing the same kind of things, and I could just watch and work out what they were doing and work out what's the best path for my current life and where I wanted to head. And the best path is just the community, is meeting people to do homebrew tastings, having little competitions, is just great. Just sharing in that and getting some recognition for the beers that you do, and learning about BJCP and how to brew a beer to style and get it into a national competition and win some prizes and stuff. But yeah, I had goals of having a big brewery somewhere, but I can't see it happening. I would like a brew pub, but I've got a family and I can't see that happening either, because I'd have to be working in a brew pub at night time. So,
right. Now you talked about
life is there as well.
Yeah, life. Yeah, absolutely. Now you talked about the community. You mentioned the community. So, and you've also mentioned that you're involved a lot with other communities as well. So that would be facebook.com/Hut Brewer, HUTT.
Yep.
Brewer.
Yep, Brewer. Yep. And it was originally to get the people in Lower Hutt, which was outside of the CBD of Wellington, together as a little group, because Wellington had a group, and it was like, oh, Wellington's got a group, let's sort of make a group out in the suburbs as well, that we can get together and do swaps. But it's just got big. It's got way bigger than the Wellington group, and it's got all the Wellington people in it anyway, and we sort of run the competitions, and we might sort of merge the two groups together, but it's just taken off, and it's taken off with lots of people around the world as well. They've jumped in because it's a great forum that you can sit there and talk to. And you're on it, Tony, and SJ's on it, and it's fun. It's just nice to be able to have a place that you can sit there and just share the stuff that you do. I never liked Facebook. I thought it was intrusive into your life. However, all the events and things that happen, like the beer tastings and the beer launches, were always advertised through Facebook. So I needed to join up to Facebook to find out when these things were happening, to get more involved in it. And since doing that, yeah, I'm involved. I'm also a bro. So in New Zealand we have an organisation called SIPO. Now, Bro is a brewery representative officer. So in New Zealand there's a non-profit organisation called SOBA, which is the Society of Beer Advocates. And as a bro, I go and follow small breweries and write an article and report back to SOBA so that it can go in SOBA's quarterly magazine. And I had my first article written in the last episode that came out. So I look after 3 breweries, Balin's Brewery, North End Brewing and Remedy Brewing. And they're all in Wellington, and they're all people I know personally as friends as well. So it just means that whenever they have a beer launch, I have to go to the beer launch, because it's my duty as a representative officer to be there.
Tough duty. I mean, I served in the U.S. military for 9 years, and I thought that was kind of tough duty. But this has got to be something harsh to a whole new level.
Oh, mate, it is a whole new level. It's and very much like being in the army, you get a lot of respect. When you go to places, they go, oh, there he is, he's a bro, hey. So, yeah. So I do that as well. That's part of the community thing I do to give back to the sober organisation, and it's fun. It's really rewarding. I wish there was more time in the day to do more things.
So okay, wait a minute.
So
from a day-to-day sort of responsibilities for Bro. So you're responsible for going to these breweries, checking out what's going on, what are the community activities, and then sharing that with this organization called Sober, so that they are the collective of all the other bros within New Zealand, and they are able ultimately to inform the public of what's going on within the brewing community. Is that basically it?
Yep, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's to have some eyes and ears out in the pub scenes and to work out what's going on. To find out,
That's very well organized.
Their fingers out. It is. It's really, really well done. And a lot of the people that are in that run Sober are brewers and bar managers and bar owners, and they're people I know because I live in Wellington. Wellington is the craft beer capital of New Zealand, so everything about craft beer happens in Wellington. So you get to meet all these people and talk to all these people, and they're all good friends, and it's a lot of fun. Like the president of Sober is David Wood, and he was the person that I had the Beatnik IPA many years ago, which was the purple beetroot IPA that he made that just went commercial a couple of months ago that I went to taste. And it's just nice to see people grow and do things in the beer community and grow along with them as well. So it's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of time, but the time sort of flies. You don't really notice it. It's sort of a subconscious thing that sort of happens that you're involved in.
Sounds like a nice community to be involved with. Really.
Yeah. You also get discounts when you go to the pub if you're a sober member.
Let's talk a little bit about the SJ Pour Challenge, because that's pretty much a lot about community as well. So that's a completely different community, totally global, and has just sort of skyrocketed. How did this come to be such a magnificent sort of thing to be a part of?
Well, I did last year's challenge. I was friends with SJ through YouTube and our Homebrew Wednesdays, and we chatted and stuff like that. And when the experiment happened last year that we needed to all brew the same beer, the same grain bill, and add a couple of adjuncts, it was like, that sounds like fun, because I hadn't done any smash competitions at that stage. And although this wasn't a smash, it was a really nice experiment to see how other brewers were going to change that beer around. And that was my main goal of it. It was going to be a case swap, and I could taste all these different beers with the same grain bill and try and work out what other people were doing and learn from other brewers. So I said to SJ, hey, look, I'll do New Zealand. I don't mind doing New Zealand. Let's see if we can get this thing started. And it took off. It worked really, really, really well. Same thing with Harry Brew. He took it up in the UK and it took off there. So at the end of it, I shipped the top 6 beers that we had to SJ, and also the top 6 beers to Harry Brew. And SJ and Kevin fired beers back to myself and Harry Brew as well. And it was just so exciting to sit down. I had our top 5, our top 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I had our top 4 brewers in Wellington sit down with me at work, and we shared all the beers from the US. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. It was just, we had the big screen at the end of the table, and we put Uvu on, or Google Hangouts or something like that, and we had SJ and we had Kevin. And Lamo 22 was there. It was just so much fun to sit there and have a beer with those people. And it was at that point there that sort of made me click to the community. That you weren't just watching a YouTube video about somebody, you were actually involved in that person's life because you were interacting with them. And after that, I probably had quite a few sessions of Friday night drinks with SJ.
Yeah.
Just sitting there, just having a beer, just chatting away. Very much like what in the UK are doing with Vaughan TV. Just a way of extending that community and getting more of a one-on-one, getting more of an interactive media going on there, which is great. It's really, really nice.
With an experience like that, you could almost say you're experiencing a day in the life of a fellow brewer, because it takes an entire day to brew one of those beers. So you are basically experiencing one of his day's efforts and labors in order to produce that thing.
And you see the anticipation of the brewer as well, because that beer, you've seen it being tasted by lots of other people, and you've got a slight perception of what other people think, and you've got a perception of what the brewer thinks of it. You know, they may think, oh, I'm not too sure about it. It might be undercarbonated, it might be overcarbonated, or not. You know, not sure if the flavors work quite well. So you get all of that anticipation about the beer and that excitement about what it could be and what it could taste like. And you're right, you get to enjoy an instance of their life. This is something that they did on the other side of the world with different water, different grains and different ingredients, and you get to enjoy it. And it's like, wow, this is great. And at the same time, they're enjoying one of your beers, and it's humbling to see one of your beers on video on the other side of the world being drunken. It is a very, very unique feeling, and I think it's something that a lot of people like, because you start to get a bit of beer mail once you do videos. There's lots of people enjoy seeing their beer being tasted online, so they sort of start to send more beer mail around, and they like to swap the beer, and that's another great thing in the community, is that, you know, one day at work and there's a bang on the door, it's the courier driver, and he brings in a box of beer, and you go, woohoo, oh, this is cool. 5 minutes later, there's another bang on the door, there's another thing of beer mail, and it's like, far out, 2 beer mails in one day, this is great. And then you get home and you try and work out what bottles of beer that you've got that you can ship up and send off somewhere, and that's a little bit of where the SJ Pour thing started up. I think you were on. I was sharing a bottle of beer with you that I'd sent over before jumping on to Uvu and talking to SJ and Kevin about how this challenge was going to start. And Zippy jumped in as well, and that was sort of the birth of the 2014 challenge for SJ Pour.
That's right.
We're saying, let's just do it.
So when it comes back to,
and it just happens.
It does. When it comes down to sharing your brew with fellow homebrewers, or even with your fellow friends and colleagues and family, I mean, that really is sort of the essence of a homebrewer, where you really truly get to enjoy not just the fruits of your labor, but you get to share your joy of the fruits of your labor with the other people that you surround yourself with. And that seems to be a lot of the motivation between being a home brewer. So how much homebrew do you actually share with your family, friends, colleagues? What's the output?
Heaps.
Another.
Heaps. It would be over 50% of the beer that I produce gets shared. I've got a beer in the kegerator that's all bottled up that is just for sharing. It's actually just for bribing. It's a tradie beer. It's not a high hopped beer. It's just a simple pale ale. But it's a beer that I give my mates that come around and help do jobs for me. So it's like a contra beer. So there's a lot of beer. It's a lot of beer that I sort of brew to give to people to say, here, come around and have a look at my fridge, and I'll give you a dozen beers for your efforts to come around. And that sort of plays on it a lot as well. Taking beer to work, I've got a beer engine at work, so we've brewed at work. We've brewed a black IPA, the Enforcer IPA by Balin's Brewery, which was a work pack. The server room has got air conditioning in it, and it stays at 18 degrees.
That's perfect.
Sounds like a good place to brew beer. So we did. We fermented black IPA in there, and then we kegged it up. I brought it home, kegged it up, bottled up, brought the kegs in, brought in growlers, and we drank it at work. So it was all shared at work, and that's a lot cheaper than going to the pub. But it was fun because it was something that we brewed at work and we enjoyed doing. So, but yeah, a lot of the beer is shared around and passed around, and it's also a movement to try and get people off fizzy yellow water, try and get them drinking decent beer that's fresh and with flavour. Introduce them to something that they go, oh, it's true, I never knew that beer could taste like this.
So back to the SJ Pour Challenge, how many people does New Zealand have signed up and registered so far?
We have 24, 25. About 25 people so far.
That's a huge load.
That's quite a lot, yeah. I'm
compared to last year.
Currently trying to work out whether last year we had 16. So, which was pretty good for a first hit. And this year I'm trying to work out how to split it up into hubs. Purely because it's a lot of beer to drink in a short amount of time that we need to dedicate the time to. I don't want to rush through somebody's beer and not give it its due rewards of tasting it properly and marking it properly and scoring it.
Of course.
So we may look at splitting New Zealand into hubs because just to cut down. Also to cut down on the shipping cost locally in New Zealand. Although I have organised it for Beervana weekend, where we do our swap in New Zealand, because anybody that's a brewer, a home brewer, is making the pilgrimage to Beervana in Wellington, so they can bring their beers along, and that saves on the shipping cost.
That's a great coordination effort, yeah.
But we may, that's it's a massive weekend. It's a massive week actually. It's when the New Zealand Brewers Guild Awards dinner is on, and they announce who's the gold medalist winner in New Zealand and all that sort of stuff. So they have every brewer in New Zealand is in Wellington for that week. So it's a lot of fun. You get a lot of chances to catch up with people and stuff. The pubs are just absolutely rocketing. Heaps of fun. But hubs, yes, we might split. South Island might be split and North Island might be split. It's just a balancing act at the moment because there's more people in the North Island than there is in the South Island that have registered. So I want to do a bit of a registration drive in the South Island to try and make them the same size, and then we could split them up a little bit more evenly, because I don't want to. It would be a hard thing to take some people from the North Island and send them down to the South Island. You can't sort of make the decision on who does that. It would have to be a random draw. So it would be better if we had the right numbers in the region so that we could split it. But I'm not sure. We're working on it. We've got a bit of time up our sleeves. Luckily, New Zealand's right at the end of the SJ Pour Challenge. So we can see how it pans out with other people.
Yeah, registration deadline's approaching soon, so that we can help out get the sponsors accurate information about how many people are participating. So that's important. And the whole idea is about how the event is going to unfold and the reasons why and the numbers and the sponsors. I mean, you've been playing a huge part of that behind the scenes, and you seem to have a lot of insight into how these type of competitions should unfold. What is your experience with these type of competitions?
Deep end. Pretty much, sort of saying, I'll run a competition and jumping in with like the likes of the Smash Off and being the hub for the SJ Pour thing last year and working out what that coordination was. It's just it's like there's a job to do and you just do it. You don't really think too hard about it. I don't know. I don't know why how the I've got no background in logistics, so. But last year for the SJ Pour Challenge, I managed to organise a plane to fly our beers from Auckland to Wellington for free. So things just happen, and I think it's probably more that community, that you're in a collective state of mind about brewing, and you hear all these cool little ideas and people make suggestions and stuff, and you just become the vehicle that brings them forward. So it's not all, it's not my ideas that have been great, that have made the SJ Pour Challenge what they are. It's been the community talking about little bits in the background going, oh, it'd be good if we did this, and what about if it was just a top 3, and all those little bits of chitter chatter get blended in, and the Brewer Borg Collective, what it is. We're all thinking about the same kind of stuff, and it's just that big collective mind, and we come up with
it all comes back to Star Trek, baby.
It does, and the intro to my to all my homebrew videos is by Warp 11, who are a Star Trek band, and I contacted him and I said, "Hey, look, can I use your music for an intro video?" And he says, "Yeah, go for it." So that's the red alert.
That's got to be the most memorable intro and outro in the entire BrewTuber community.
Oh, I love it. It's. I hear it now, and that's what I think. I think Homebrew Wednesday, I think my brewing stuff, and it's the same with other people's intros. I think your intro as well, Tony, is when I hear it, then I pay attention. It's not until you hear that little bit of music that jogs the memory, and you go, right, well, this is what I'm doing. I'm sitting down and paying attention to that. But it works. It works quite well. It's fun, and it's something that I can use.
So, talking about the BrewTubing community, I mean, where do you foresee yourself in the BrewTubing community in the next couple of years?
I'm not sure. I would like to do more training videos and tip videos and build videos and things about, this is how a quick disconnect works, or this is the inside of a grain, and this is how a yeast divides its cells and all that sort of stuff. So more like white paper videos. I'd really like to get involved in that, because there is a lot of technical information out there that you've got to read through to try and understand. And reading chemistry sucks. It's not much fun trying to understand what alpha amylase and beta amylase and furelic acid and all those sorts of things. Once you start reading those words, you just glaze over and you're like, oh no, I'm bored. But if we can try and get it into a nice little video that works well, that people can understand, then that'll be a lot easier. So I want to extend that way. I also want to extend a little bit more into graphics and animations with my videos.
Okay.
Because at the moment it's just a vlog sort of format, and I'd like to make it more of an informative. This is the grain. Hello, grain. Something that's more entertaining than just a guy talking about grains while he sits in his glass house with hops behind him.
I think that's a great idea.
Which is what I did. And I just like to see it grow. It's nice to watch the views go up and the subs go up and stuff like that. And the hardest thing is watching everybody else's video, because the more people that watch you, there's more people that start doing videos as well, and then you got to try and catch up and watch all those people's videos, and that's probably the worst thing about being a BrewTuber, is that you run out of time to watch everybody's video, or give everybody's video the full extent of attention that you possibly can. So one thing that my wife has started is YouTube New Zealand, and she started that with 2 other YouTubers, and they go around and they collect snippets of YouTube from people in New Zealand and put it together as a short little 5-minute video that introduces you to what those people are doing, and it sort of gives like a brief summary. So it's it's just a short sort of vlog about here's this person, this person, and this person, and here's little snippets of what they're doing and what they've been up to. So it sort of summarises what's going on. So that would be an interesting thing to do as well, is to look at the community and start to do more collaborative work together and start to join people's stuff.
That's a very interesting idea.
And
let's explore that for a minute, because we see a lot of videos, especially from a lot of new BrewTubers who are very interested in sharing information with us, because we are asking for that information. No doubt about it. We know that we don't know everything, and that other people have tips and tricks that we can use and leverage and, you know, benefit from. So nobody is an island. No man is an island, and therefore we can all sort of contribute and consume and learn from each other. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's fundamentally what we're trying to do here. So to have a video that's sort of a condensed version of what everybody else is doing seems like a great idea. Who does the responsibility of producing such a product come from? I mean, who's responsible for that?
Right. See, that's the interesting thing. That's where, like you asked me just before about how do I come up with these ideas, and it's a collective thing that I look at. Well, because the wife's doing it at the moment, so I'm sitting back and I'm watching, and the challenges that she is facing are the challenges that I'm learning from at the moment, because they have 3 people and they've got to work out what do we put up this week. And then they get messages of, why didn't you put my stuff up? And I didn't want you to put that stuff up. And I didn't give you permission to do that, and that sort of stuff. So that helps me come up with the idea to go, okay, we could do this as well, but I would do it this way. But I'm still learning from.
That's an interesting learning curve
to try and work out what the best approach is. Yeah. See, my wife doesn't realise how valuable she is.
Look away.
Although I tell her, I should tell her more often, really. Yeah.
Yes.
Because she's doing all the groundbreaking work, and then I'm just sort of following along behind and tidying it up and doing it for my little community, because her community is massive. She's beauty, and it's ironic because she does beauty and I do beer, and we both have the same thing in common, is that both of us make people look pretty. So.
Oh, you're a beautiful guy. Come on, let's not be bashful. But, okay, so no, I mean, that's pretty interesting, because it comes down to a producer, right? There is a producer behind the scenes that has to decide about these things. And yeah, you're going to have artists and people who are creating these sort of things that are touchy and feely about how their content is being leveraged or utilized, and to be able to turn that around and say, hey, for BrewTubers, that would actually be extremely valuable.
There's also a little bit of groundwork in it with the SIPO challenge, by having an intro video and seeing how people utilize that intro video, and where's the resistance of, I don't want to use that video, or I don't want those sponsors in it, and you start to learn, you know, how a BrewTuber thinks.
Or somebody who's actually going to put together and produce videos that is a consolidation of a lot of other BrewTuber videos. I mean, there's got to be a lot involved with that.
Yeah, there's heaps. There is a lot. There's lots of copyright issues because of YouTube. There's lots of actor issues. Oh dear, I can't have that video. You know, you got to get the permission from everybody. Then you also got to understand how to organise people, or how to let people down gently. Because why isn't my video in it this week? My video should be in it this week. I was good. I talked about that.
Right.
So you've got to be that kind of people person to organise it all. And Jodie's good at doing that. So I can watch Jodie and understand how she does it and try and learn from her. And I can also learn from what we're doing with the SIPO experiment, because there's some interesting things that are happening with that. We've asked all the YouTubers that are involved to do an intro video. Are they going to use it? How are they going to use it? What quality is it going to be? Are they going to like having the sponsors in there? Are they going to put their own sponsors in there? So what are all the little hiccups that could happen by asking somebody to do a video? And another aspect is that there's lots of people that don't do videos that have lots of really valuable information. There's possibly 50% of the people in New Zealand aren't YouTubers. So I need to get those people on a video as well and talk to them. So very much like what you're doing with me, I'm actually going to be doing some interviews with people that don't do YouTube to get their story out about what they're doing. And that sort of starts to build up stuff as well. And do group tastings, or take my camera around and film them doing a tasting for the SJ Pour, or film them doing their brewing. So I become more of a cameraman or a roving brew reporter sort of thing. So this coming Sunday I'm doing a brew demonstration down at a local brew shop that I do brew demonstrations every 3 months or so. And they're demonstrations to kit and kilo people and to new brewers that have never brewed before. And it gets a bit hard because I'm sort of going over the same stuff over and over again and sort of limiting what I can show. So this time I've got 2 brewers that are coming down and we're going to do an all grain all day. So they haven't done demonstrations in front of a crowd before, so I'm standing in there to say, well, you know, I'll help field the questions and you guys just do the brew, and then we can talk about it collectively, with the idea that I can get them to do it in the brew shop on a more regular basis so that we can get more people involved in brewing. Because the more people brewing beer, the better the world would be.
The less wars there would be, less confrontation, less conflict. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, less water, less hops, less grains. Hop prices will go up. There'll be war. There'll be hop wars.
Yeah.
It's fun just to be involved, to be out there and to teach somebody to brew. Is, you know, it's like that old saying, you know, give somebody a fish and they'll eat, or take somebody and show them how to fish and they eat for the rest of their lives. You know, give somebody a beer and they're happy. Teach somebody how to brew, they're happy for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
You know, this would be cool. It's a nice way to build up that community. I think there are some excellent brewers out there that are not in the front of this community, that are hard to pull into a Facebook or pull into a YouTube community. So that we take every single home brewer that we have in New Zealand, they're really, really talented and we want them in these competitions, and we're trying to work out how do we reach out to these people, because they don't use Facebook, they don't watch YouTube, and the same thing happens in Australia. They don't use YouTube a lot, the brewers, so it's very hard for them to reach out and to get people involved in the SJ Pour Challenge because they think it's all to do with YouTube. So that's the area that I'm sort of thinking about, is that we're a little bit behind getting our entire community up to acceptance that brewing is happening elsewhere, you know.
On a global scale.
Yeah, on a global scale. The movers and the shakers are what's the trending stuff that happens on YouTube? What's, you know, the gaming and stuff like that. Those people are always at the edge of the new social media. They're the ones that get the big hits.
Sure, there's always porn, and then there's gaming,
and there's porn. Yeah,
and then there's music after that. Yeah, music videos.
Yeah. So if we sort of ranked ourselves as a community down the level of the social media, we're way down the bottom. And I would really like to see that start to come up. Now, maybe it's not just with brewing. Maybe it's with beer reviewing as well. Maybe it's with the pub scene and how to make cocktails and stuff like that. But there are some social stigmas about brewing. You know, people just, you know, you've seen the poster. What people think you are doing is just drinking beer all the time. What you're really doing is cleaning bottles. It's breaking that perception of what a home brewer is, to open up that community and make that community bigger and more embraced.
So on behalf of all of the users and everybody that subscribes to you and likes your videos and comments on your videos, let me just say that thank you so much for all of the contributions that you make within the community, because you are a huge help just with getting to learn how to brew, what brewing is about, what the experiences are, what we can expect. Thanks a lot for all of your coordination efforts going on with the SJ Port Challenge, with all the other challenges that your competitions that you're involved with, the tastings, your brew communities, the sober community, and everything else like that. So just a huge thank you, Paul, for taking the time out of your daily schedule in order to share with me today, and I truly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Cheers. Thanks for taking the time to do this interview with me. It's humbling to be asked to do this. I never thought where I would lead to with YouTubing. I'm just sitting in my little brew shed, taking a video and chucking it up on YouTube. And the thing that's really amazing is the community that I've met and the friends that I've met in this community, that I reach out and I feel like I know you. It's like yourself, Tony, and like Stephen and Mary. They're part of my life. I'm involved in their life, and I miss it when I don't see it. When I don't see you on YouTube or get the chance to have chats with you via Uber or Google Plus Hangouts and stuff. It's created an extended family, and it's a most valuable community that I've ever been involved in. It's great. I love it. It's awesome. And we drink beer, and we make great beer, and we share beer. So we talk about beer. All good things that men should do is drink and talk about beer.
Absolutely. And with 2,000 plus subscribers and growing, and there's no other better person to come to for resource and information than you, sir.
Oh, cheers. That's awesome.
So with all that said, thank you very much for all your contributions, and by God, have yourself another one.
Cheers. Have yourself another one.